Hey everyone, Joe Glines here, and today I'm interviewing Gio Sperotto. Gio, and you're in Brazil, is that right? If I remember right. Yep. Um,
Yeah,
so
in Brazil right
Gio,
now. I live here.
cool. Gio, boy, what was that? Like 6 months ago, ran our webinar on neural networks, and so it was fascinating. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It was really amazing. Gio, why don't you give us a little idea of your background of education and focus and type of the companies you worked at?
Okay, I work for a big company. It has a warehouse, a fleet of trucks. It actually sells products to smaller stores. So it buys in large quantities and then sells in small quantities. It's business to business. No end customer involved in this company. So my background, I have two graduations. I have two college degrees, one in accounting and one in law, actually.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I'm a lawyer. And I'm also a programmer. I work with it in my company. I develop many programs, many applications, always trying, of course, to make it to improve the quality of our services. And that's basically it. I really don't think there is more to say other than stuff that is not exactly related to programming. So I've
So,
been doing programming for 7, 8 years now.
okay.
So it's about the much experience I have. I've done
Now,
a lot of programming this time.
and let me ask you this: when you were at your current company, did you start off as a programmer, or were you doing one of your other two areas, and then you started programming because you liked it or whatever?
Actually, I've never been hired as a programmer. The company belongs to my family, so
Oh,
I kind of do a lot of things in here, everything,
no.
including law-related stuff and also programming. Always trying to actually, as mentioned, to improve our services.
Yep.
And I have started with programming because I realized that AutoHotkey had a much broader potential than what I first downloaded it for. Because I thought at first, I need a tool that will allow me to create a Windows macro. So I
Uh-huh.
wanted to record some keystrokes, to record my mouse movement, and then play it in order to save some man hours in some departments of the company. And once I did this over time, in the very first days, I realized that I was using a program that used to be in the same package as AutoHotkey. It was AutoScript Writer. Do you know it?
Yeah.
And AutoScript Writer is great because not only does it record your keystrokes and mouse movement, but also it displays the text, the script that it is creating, that it is writing. So I quickly realized that those numbers and words were somewhat related to the mouse movements and the
Yeah.
keystrokes I
Yeah.
was making. So I tried to change them, and I
Yeah.
found out that it changed the output. And I
Yeah.
found that amazing because, oh, I can do so much with this.
Yes.
So I actually took a better look to the tool and started reading the manuals, started reading the tutorials, and over time I accumulated a lot of knowledge and started writing my own programs.
Cool.
That's how I began into programming and AutoHotkey.
Yeah. For me,
Over time, I also studied and learned other languages, especially those that help in making bigger applications like SQL, and I have learned some C++, but most of the time I program using auto efficient in I can do so much with it in almost no time at all.
yeah, agreed. I was gonna say for me, I used some sort of, I think it was pullovers macro, creator or something, but and like you, first I used hot strings and hotkeys, but then I started doing the mouse clicking and stuff, and I saw it, and I realized, oh, here's the stuff, and then but then I realized just how much extra junk that those tools add to what you're doing that you really don't need, and that's what got me to say, you know what, I'll use it to start it, and then I clean it up, And then I just, of course, over time started learning enough about it. I didn't have to use that macro creator. I could just write it freehand. But it still is a great starting place, right? The other thing I wanted to comment on, because you brought up a really interesting point, like you said that you're working for your family's company, but it's still, when I've worked at smaller companies, I wore many hats and did a lot of different jobs. And when I worked at bigger companies, like the focus of what you do really shrinks down. And when you try to offer to help other people to do other things, it gets very territorial, right? And people fight you for it. Versus in a small company, you have to do all these different things, and anything you want to do. And that's what made me think about it. Is like you said, like you're trying to help things, but in different areas. And I love that. I learned so much more at the smaller company because I learned all these different areas instead of going really deep into one area. So for anyone thinking about it, there is some good advantages of working at smaller companies versus bigger companies, and of course vice versa.
Yes, that's true. I have actually worked for other companies as well in the past. I worked for an accounting office while I was getting my accounting degree, and I actually felt some about what you just said. It's the smaller companies, you have more freedom to actually do more. But when you get to big companies, it's often that people in certain departments will not find it very.
You're cutting out here. Hello? Hello? I'm going to pause this.
That you are, but that's just how much more and create these departments and actually tell certain people to do specific jobs, and this is part of what happens.
Yeah, no, agreed. And then larger companies, you can also run into a lot more IT. IT doesn't want you to be doing what you're doing, but anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, at your company, has anyone else like even adopted AutoHotkey, or have you does anyone else even at least use your stuff, hopefully, if they're not even coding themselves?
Yeah, a lot of people use the AutoHotkey programs I wrote in my company. Some of them have over time tried to write some themselves, but they're not as interested as I am. That's the truth, because it varies between people. Some people find it, like me, I found it amazing. Whoa, I can do so much with it. But other people tend to lead different lives, and they just want to do their jobs, and that's it. That's something I see a lot. So what can I do? I always try to be very helpful, and if someone wishes to learn the language, I'm here to teach them. But most of the time, they are users. They're not programmers.
Yeah.
So they use the program. They find it awesome that it saves so much time from daily tasks, but they're not actually interested in learning the language. That's just the truth.
I read a thing the other day. It was a play on, you've heard the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. This one said, like, you're better off leading a thirsty horse to water, right? Because then they'll actually want to drink. And I think it's a good summary for me, because I kept trying to teach people how to do stuff. And like you said, if they're not interested, there's just no way they're going to learn and pick it up, right? So it's and
programming is actually a subject that you have to be very interested in order to actually learn something, because it's so much trial and error. Reading, you have to read a lot, and you have to test a lot. Test, until you actually get the feeling of how you will express in that language. It's actually a different language. It's like learning a new language, although it's not the same as a spoken language, but it does have a learning curve. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I think it was with Raptor X that came up he literally said it's like learning a different language. And even then he's like, programming languages also, because like AutoHotkey and AutoIt they're both from the same, AutoHotkey's from AutoIt, right? So if you can write AutoHotkey, it's easy to pick up AutoIt because they're so related. And I'm like, that also applies like languages. If you're speaking like Portuguese, right? Italian or Spanish, you can swap into instantly, right? Because they're so similar. But yeah, it does actually apply in a lot of ways to think of it as a whole language. And when you're trying to pick up a new one, like if you try to pick up Mandarin Chinese, that's like starting in C# or something, right? And it's like, man, you're starting with the hardest thing there is. Why don't you start on something like, to me, AutoHotkey? It's so much easier to step into and play with, which is one of the things I think is great about AutoHotkey. So I'm curious, what would you recommend if you were trying to get a colleague, to start? Where would you tell them to start? What do you suggest? Do you like the way you did it with the macro recorder? And
Well, actually, I think the best way to start is to read the tutorials. There is so much work done in making them, improving the learning curve of those that are beginning on the language. And there are so many tutorials, and some are well written, others not so much. But if you can point them in the direction of actually trying some things and learning some things, because AutoHotkey, it's like learn a few commands, and the most important thing, it's how you're going to chain these commands in order to do something fun or something interesting that you're trying to do. And once you learn quite a few, not just one command just doesn't serve for much. But if you learn how to send keystrokes, and then how to move your mouse, and then how to open a window, how to run a program, then you can do a lot of things by chaining these commands together. So I like to point them to tutorials, because people are trying to actually select certain commands for the beginner to learn in succession, in order for him to actually quickly pick up some things that he can do. And perhaps by doing this, they are going to get these people to become more interested, because that's the actually best thing you can get from the language, is to be able to do these things. So if they feel like, well, I can do so much now, I think this has the highest chance of getting them hooked up into learning the language.
Yeah, and I think which is what you're alluding to, is it's got to be important to them. They have to have that need, right? And when you can hone in on what they're actually trying to do.
Thirsty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it does. And thirsty for water, right? For that thing that they're looking for. And when you can show them that, then they get really excited and will follow up. But I think you have a really good point about we tend to pick a topic and learn it, but so much of stuff I do with AutoHotkey, I'm piecemealing different aspects of it together in so many different ways, right? And so it's one of those other important ones. I'd tell people, look, if you start with, let's say you start with COM and Excel, right? And you're doing stuff in Excel. If you only stuck with it, don't get me wrong, it's great. But there are so many other ways you can do things and then editing files and doing this and that or text manipulations and regular expressions, that if you don't actually expose yourself to those things, you won't realize that, like, holy cow, right? I was doing this a certain way. And like, there was one example, a friend was asking, he had a file and he was automating inside let's say it was in WordPad. He was automating, hitting Control F and then finding the words and then putting in the replacement and using the search replace in WordPad, right? And I'm like, well, is this file on your computer? It's like, yeah. I'm like, well, then you don't have to open it in WordPad and do the search replace in a GUI, right? Like, AutoHotkey can read in the file in the memory and do this stuff like in a flash and so much more accurate. But he had it, it even took me a while to explain it, right? The concept, because he had never been exposed to it. And so that's the other one I'd say is, like, even when you get hooked on one, and that's where I think you're right with tutorials, because they're different things to cover different topics, right? You don't have to master them, but as long as you can understand that they're there, right? That, hey, if I ever have this need to grab a screen or click a certain area or to grab OCR in a text or, whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways you can do things, and just understanding it's possible, right? That then later, if you have the need, then you dive deep into it, or you just Google it and find someone else that's done it and then borrow it and put it in your code.
You mentioned something interesting just now.
Yep.
It's the word possible. One of the things that I try to tell beginners early on is whatever you see a computer doing, AutoHotkey can do that as well.
Yep.
There may be some limitations, but in the end, you actually manage to do it. And this is very important because we're essentially dealing with Windows programming. So you have seen games, you have seen programs that do a lot of stuff, browsers, etc., database connections, and all this can be done using AutoHotkey. One of the things that I like the most is that often I pick a certain subject that I see that the community has not delved into yet, and then I try to read a little about it, and then within a few days I get some code, and that's how it happened with neural networks. That's how it happened with QR codes. I think that's very interesting because when you see, oh, nobody has ever wrote a code to generate QR code in AutoHotkey. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. I know it's possible before I even try it.
Right.
Because I know that the tool has access to all the tools required to do Windows programming, and Windows programs were able to generate QR codes. So it's more like I will then start studying the subject and develop this tool. Yeah. It's one of the things that beginners often inquire me about. Can it do games? Yes, it can do games. It's not an engine. There are no absurd engines. It's market level engines yet, but you can do games. And I think one of the users, Speed, I don't remember his username right now, but he actually managed to put together a list of like, I don't know how many, 50, 100 games that have already been written in AutoHotkey, and that's cool. That's amazing. So much has already been done. And whenever you have a task that you need doing in your computer and you have seen something similar using other languages, it's almost certain that you can do it in AutoHotkey. And this is one of the things that I have been learning over the years. Whatever I want to do, if I actually try it, if I study, if I dedicate myself into doing it, program it using AutoHotkey, in the end it works. And that's just one of the magics that I've seen. It's one of the things that actually makes me find this language so great. It's that it allows you to do whatever you want to do, even if it has not been done in that language yet.
Right.
That's what possible, actually, how people have to understand the word possible, because beginners like to ask it a lot. Is it possible to do this? Yes, it is. Right. Is it possible to do this? Yes. Even when it has not been done yet.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, what they're probably more than likely asking is, has someone already done this and made it in a way that I can almost just steal it and then not have to do any work, right? It's
perhaps that's the question. If this is the question that I'll say, why do you want to get something that's already ready? Don't you want to just delve into it and make it yourself? Because whatever, people are different.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, and not to put you on the spot, but do you have any even if you just talk to them, unless you want to show them, but do you have some examples, either you can explain like things that you've automated at work, or show if you're up for it, of just to help people to, this has been, I actually started doing a weekly, here's what I automated this week. And I've gotten a lot of feedback of like, it really helps people think outside the box because they see what other people are doing with it. Right. And so do you have anything that's not proprietary that you can share, that, or just again, we don't have to get into the code. It's just, explaining or demonstrating the usage of it, to help people think about, what could be done.
Sure, no problem. I have, like I said, I have wrote many programs over the years. So some of them are very nice, very complete programs that I can say they're almost market level. I have not tried to sell these programs, and I don't think I will, because that's not how I work right now. But they're very nicely built and they do a lot of stuff. And I think, yes, this is how I could perhaps example to beginners and those that will eventually watch this interview, how you can see that AutoHotkey can do whatever you want it to do in terms of Windows programming, or most of it. So I have quite a few examples. Right now, I'm more into programming than automation, actually. I have some automation examples as well in the company, an example in a certain department where you have different systems, third-party systems, and you have to get data from one to the other one.
Yeah.
Years ago, people would simply print a report and then write it all over manually in a form, in a program. And now they will just run a certain code and it will translate the data from that program into an import file to the other program. So I have a few examples, but I'm mostly into programming right now. So I like to do a little bit more.
Just expound a little bit on the difference for you between programming versus automation, because I hadn't really thought about it before, but I think I understand how you're using the two differently.
Yeah, well, actually, automation is perhaps it does actually confuses with programming on certain definitions, because you can use programming to do automation. So automation is like you have a certain task and you're doing it manually. You need a person to be there present and do it either on a PC, like typing and inserting data into a form and then saving, or perhaps manually. And automation is by using machines or programs to actually have the same task done without the need for human interaction there. So that's how I would define automation. It's just a blunt definition. I know I have not actually.
But correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying you still, those other programs that people were using are still being used. You're just sending keystrokes or doing whatever, but you're using a program to do that. Yeah,
automation is like people are, because how these programs were developed, they are having to do manual stuff. And that's not wrong, because these are two different programs. So when the developer of the first program developed it had no idea that someone in a certain company from like hundreds, thousands of customers that would download his program would actually find the need to get that information into another program that he has never seen before. So
which is
unlikely that the first developer will even attempt to develop a routine to export this data to that certain program. So what I'm doing is, once I realize that in this specific company, there are people who are working a lot into having to do this manually and having to insert data into form, data that is already present at their computers. And then this is what creates opportunity for you to automate that task. So you go and you write a script, and this script basically collects the data from the first program, maybe a report or an export file. Then it translates to an import file if that other program has an import routine. This is an example. So when you do this, when you have written a script that will do this, collect data from one program and then translate it to an import file for the other program, what you're doing essentially is you're getting a task that would require someone to work in it for a few hours, and then you're making it require just a few minutes or seconds. And this is automation. You are essentially removing the need for human interaction in that process, and you're still getting it done the same way. This is how I would bluntly define automation. Programming is how you are actually writing the script, an example, in order to do that. So programming is one of the tools that you can use to achieve automation of a task. This is just how like I said, I have not done a previous research, nor have I tried to get a more accurate definition. That's just how I see it right now.
The other thing I would add to that is, correct me if I'm wrong in how you're explaining it, is automation, typically, there's a GUI involved, right? And with programming, you're probably no longer going to have that GUI as the connection of the two things. Right? There's no reason for a GUI because there's no human, right? So you have one program talking to another and directly to it, and the speed is insane. You know, the amount of data that everything is so much faster. But I think that would be another one.
You get the same task done without the need for human interaction. That's basically what it is about.
Okay, so do you have examples, or just want to talk through some of the stuff?
Sure, no problem. Let me see. I forgot how to share the screen. I think, oh,
Yeah.
share screen.
Yep.
I'll share it now. Can you see it already? Can you see my
It's coming
screen?
up. It's just a little slow, but there we go.
There we go. Can you see the web page?
Yep.
AutoHotkey web page. Okay, so I have prepared a small folder containing a few examples of what I've been doing over the years.
Excellent.
Not everything is here because, anyways,
yeah,
it would take a lot of time to explain everything.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Okay, I'll start with the simplest ones, and then we can move on to those who are more intricate. So we have a warehouse, a big warehouse as mentioned, and one of the things that you actually have to do, I'll show you a picture of it. There you go. Just as an example, this is the warehouse. So you can see we have a lot of products, and it is very important that every single box in this huge warehouse is correctly located. So you are not mixing anything up. Everything is correctly organized. You have things on the shelves, and then you need to move these things because once you get a customer request for a certain item, someone's going to have to go into the shelves, get that item, and then separate it. And separated is essentially you get an order, and then you have a certain specific place in the warehouse that you're going to put all the items related to that order in that specific place. So you're getting from shelves, some shelves here, shelves far away, other shelves, and then you get everything and you put them together in the same specific place. And once you finish this job, another employee will come and then check if the order has been fulfilled in that specific place. All the items have been located there. And then the process goes on and on. Everything is loaded into the trucks and then delivered to the customers. So it's highly organized, and it has to be, because when you look at this picture, I think you can understand that if I take a certain box from a certain address in the shelves and then somehow put it in another address, everything's going to go bananas. It's not going to work like that.
Right.
So everything has to be highly organized. And one of the things that we use to organize these boxes, an example, are labels. And these are very important. Right. And I have actually used AutoHotkey to develop a QR code generator, which is basically a small program that will create an image, and this image can be read to collect data from that specific box, about that specific box. So even if you get a certain box from one shelf and then you somehow, someone, badly intentioned or not, they will put it in another place, over time someone can see this, because as soon as they scan that label, they will see that it's not in the correct position. So this is part of what allows the warehouse to stay organized. And the labels are like this. They're very simple. This number that you see on the bottom of the label, 00237, it all fits into this small image, this QR code image. QR codes are very nice because they are 2D barcodes, and they can hold about 4 kilobytes of data. I think it's around this. Wow. So it's a lot of information. You can actually put a whole text into a QR code. And in this, we use like this. And it's very fast reading. So if someone needs to check what this box is about, what it's doing here, what kind of order does it belong to, it just has to scan this QR code. So when you are moving stuff around the warehouse, this helps a lot. It's more into programming than I think than about automation, but it allows us to reduce errors and to not lose the stuff around the warehouse. So
that's great.
And we have other types of labels as well. This one is a pallet label. It allows us to see expiry date, even if it's high up in the shelves. And the QR code is there as well, so that if someone needs to, it can scan the QR code and get a lot of information about that specific pallet.
Can I ask a question? I'm just curious. So if I have if I happen to have a scan, my phone reads QR codes and I scan that, is it going to dump out text about it? Or is it a proprietary thing that you have to have next to with AutoHotkey?
Well, QR codes can be used to encode any type of data that you want to, from bytes, from bits that you will have to translate into something using your own program, to text or other types of characters. And you could put, in theory, even an image inside it, although I don't think there's necessarily a need for this. But if you scan a QR code in your phone, it's likely that it will lead you to a certain website so that you can shop for items that are
I know. I'm just,
or perhaps get information about that telephone. But inside this warehouse, QR codes are used to store information about the logistics, the process, and the product. So, an example, in the logistics of moving an item from the shelves to the truck, it does move a lot. So by putting certain information into the labels, we can see what part of the process that specific item is now on, because it contains a code, and this code, once it's scanned, will allow me to link to certain information that it's in the database. Or perhaps I could write the information into the QR code itself. So QR codes essentially allow you to plan how you want to what kind of information you want to store on them.
Well, I know. Well, my question is, will any QR code reader get the data out, or does it have to be tied to AutoHotkey?
No. Any reader.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Actually, this QR code generator has been done to be used by the ERP of our company, which is another system, a third-party system. Okay. So it is this system that actually controls the information about that specific item. So my program will just simply get a specific information and translate and create a QR code. And by reading this QR code using certain readers, which the employees have at hand, they can access the database from the ERP. So it's like two systems that work together to fulfill the task of actually organizing the warehouse.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, this is one of the examples, just a quick example, how you can use AutoHotkey to do stuff in your work, in your place, get things done, programming, etc. It's very simple, nothing out of the ordinary. I have some other examples here as well. Another simple example, this is a production panel. It runs in the warehouse as well. There is a big TV screen there, and it updates automatically. The panel is written using AutoHotkey. So what you're seeing here is an AutoHotkey GUI, and it displays just-in-time information about the production of certain employees. And the idea is that these employees are commissioned by how much, an example, these items in here are how many items they have separated over the month.
Oh,
example.
wow.
So the first one is Suele. Yeah. He has separated over 5,000 items over this month. Actually, it's not a month that the month starts to the certain date in which the picture was taken. It was taken a long ago. It's not an. So this employee can check his own progress. He can have an idea of how much he's going to get out of commission for that work that he has done. He can compare himself to others. There are these other these colors in the left side of the GUI. Green, yellow, and red. These are to display if they are above or below their goal, their monthly goal. Of course, considering how much of the month has already passed when the picture was taken. So if you see this, the third column, actually the fourth column, it says meta. That is their goal, their monthly goal. So their monthly goal is 9,000.
Oh, okay.
And when the picture was taken, the certain day, that specific employee, Suele, had already separated 5,445 items. So he's above the goal, because it is expected that if he keeps this pace, when the month is completed, he will be over 9,000. And there are some other informations about it as well. The weight, how many kilograms, all those items have. And this is very nice because that screen is present in the warehouse. And
it's
once an
excellent.
employee, an example, if he wishes to get a little bit more commission in this month because he needs to buy something at the end of the month, he wants to save for this.
Yeah.
He can do a little bit more effort, and then he will be able to do it. This is very nice. It's one of the things that I like a lot. It's very meritocratic.
I read a
so
ton,
I think.
I read a ton of stuff on motivating employees, and this is excellent because it helps him, but it also the other people look at it and go, this guy's kicking my butt, right? Like, I need to get on the ball. And look, also it can be done, right? Anyway, it's excellent. I love that you have this. It's great.
Yeah. It's very transparent as well. So people, when they don't know about the stuff they're doing, they tend to get a little bit, wait, have I separated 5,000 or 6,000? Will I get 50, 60 out of commission? How much is it? And when you're displaying it just in time, they actually get an extra boost in their motivation in order to work even harder if they want to, of course, because they can, with this little effort they do over the next hour, they can see their progress and whoa, it's actually working. I'm really going to get more out of this.
Right.
So it's very motivating.
Right. Yeah. As opposed to
case.
At the end of the month, if it was just at the end of the month, you saw what you did, right? Like that's not going to motivate you at all. It might, next month, you might realize I got to work more, but you're right. Literally that hour, that day, being able to see that your work is and how you're doing, it's addictive almost. Anyway, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and there's something else. This is just one of the panels. It's a certain TV screen, and it shows. This is just one of the tasks, the separation task. There's the checking task, an example. So someone's going to go there once the product, the order has been separated, and then check to see if all the items are there. And so we have another screen that it shifts between different screens in the same TV monitor. And it takes about 15 seconds on each. And it's just to allow to every type of employee to see their actual production and how far or close or above or below the monthly goal they are. And also to get a notion of how much am I going to get for this type of effort. So we have two different tasks, separation and then order checking. And as you can see, over 15 seconds, this is going to stay 15 seconds into the screen, and then it's going to shift to this one. And once 15 seconds have passed, it will shift back so that everyone can check their progress. This is how the panel actually allows everyone in the warehouse to see it through just one screen. And all this organization, collecting data from the database, mounting the tables, updating them just in time, it's done by an AutoHotkey script, which is updating this GUI with information based on what it collects from the database, and the database is collecting this from the tasks that are being completed. So it's highly automated, and it's a nice programming tool.
Cool. Yeah.
Program.
Love it.
Itself. I have some other examples. Do you have any questions about this one? Do you want to move on?
I think it's awesome. Yeah, I love it.
Okay, so let's see what else we got. Talking about databases. Databases are very important when you move from creating programs to just one user, one computer, to actually having to program to create a certain system for a company, because it's not just one person that is going to use this. So databases are extremely important in order to do this. And I have some systems which rely heavily on databases and database managers such as SQL Server. And what they do is you create a communication between a certain client and a certain computer to the database, and in another computer, another user is going to have a different communication with the database, and this is going to make the process complete. So this is a simple tool that I have created. It's just a SQL viewer to which I can, in example, write cycle code, and then I run it, and it gives me the answer. This is an AutoHotkey GUI. It's an AutoHotkey script, if you have checked here, and it is very powerful, even though it's very simple. So I can use it to do a lot of things. Getting information about everything. And I use this either to create reports or to create the programs themselves, and it's very, very, very interesting. It has a lot of different tools. So as you can see, I have a script to which I write cycle code, and then it gives me the answer. So AutoHotkey is capable of interacting with the databases using cycle, and this is one of the most interesting things, because when you try to move on from creating scripts or programs that work in a single computer to scripts that have to work between multiple computers or different users that will do different tasks, you have to have certain networks operational, and it's great to see that this is possible.
Yeah. By the way, not last, I don't think it was last webinar, the one before, we had someone demonstrate using SQLite to connect to SQLite with AutoHotkey, so it was really good. And then Maestria, that we were just, before we started, he's working on a program, and he used to do everything, storing everything in XML, and we knew it was limiting, but we've switched over where he's starting to do stuff with SQL, and he is blown away at the speed at how fast he can go and run queries and pull back stuff. It is lightning fast, and it doesn't seem like, we're even up to like a gig, it's like still it's so fast. It's amazing. So yeah, it is really powerful.
Another thing that this specific script can do is that it can export this data to LibreOffice. Do you know LibreOffice? It's like an alternative to Excel. Yes. So if I click on this specific button here, it's gonna get all this information from the results of my query and export it to LibreOffice, so that I can work this into even a better report if I want to. It's just
the formatting and cool.
So as you can see, and AutoHotkey can automate Excel as well as LibreOffice, an example. So many different types of programs can be automated. So you see now, I'm not going to write this. It's just the script that is going to do this. Look, it's doing it right now. It's 300 columns because the script is writing column names, but as you can see, it's doing it automatically. So it's LibreOffice automation if you really wanted to see this. You could also do this without having to see it, or so you could just have a certain progress bar, and then once it's done, it would exhibit the window. But I like to see it been written so that
it's fun, isn't it? It's even when you're testing, it's fun to watch it just being automated.
Yeah,
I was amazed at the difference in speed though when you do turn off the display update and you just have it run and then you have it finish. It was amazing the amount of resources updating the display take, because it's really fast when you turn that off.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see this. All right, so this is just another example. Do you want to ask something about it? Can I move on?
Move on. I think it's great though. Yeah, this is wonderful stuff.
Okay, so this is just how I have devised some tools to help me program using AutoHotkey. So it's interesting because with software, you have many layers of tools. It's like if you were dealing with gaming, it would be an engine. So you can write stuff that will help you program even better if you want to. Or you can also have access to many different types of libraries and scripts that people have already created and have placed in the community forums if you really want to. Getting back to these samples. This is the QR code generator that I have talked about. This is the library. This is a required library that is third party. I have not written this. It's from TIC. And there is this example script that I have wrote. it aggregates all the transcripts. So whatever I write here, it's going to be translated into a QR code that can be read anywhere by anyone if they have a QR code scanner. So example test number 999. Okay, so once I do this, it automatically and quickly generates me a image. And inside this specific image, if I scan it, I will see example test 999, the same message that I have wrote.
Hold on, I'm gonna test it.
Okay, Jeff, test it.
I'm pretty sure I have a QR. Yeah. All right, let me see. Well, there we go. Can you read it? So
example test number 999. Yeah,
that's awesome. Real world. Anyway, yeah.
This is great in order to do stuff with items and logistics warehouse, or even if you want an example. Have you ever seen a V card?
Yes.
Example, if you're a lawyer or a doctor and you want to put it in your card, people will be able to scan it and they will see a lot more information about you than in just what's written in the card, and it's awesome.
Well, so while we're on this, one of my businesses I'm working on is a real estate business, and we're going to be doing mailers to people. And I was like, oh, you know what we could do is we could put, like, I was thinking like a QR code on the mailer, and that way, you know, if they scan it, we could drive them we knew we could drive them to the website, but I'm like, you know, I don't know if there's a QR code for generating for AutoHotkey for doing it, because I'd want to be able to like customize the message to them, right, and have a message to them and then something. So this is really exciting seeing you've already done this stuff. But yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to show an example of a more complex program that I have written. It's actually a functional system. It's what I call a fleet control system. What happens is this: we have a big fleet in the company, not that big, but we have like tens of vehicles. 30, 40 vehicles. Most of them are trucks, some are cars, others are other types of vehicles. So what happens is this: I have to somehow control all this process of moving these vehicles around the town in order to do deliveries of the items to the small stores that are our customers. So we had a problem at first because the gates were very insecure. So a certain driver could just pick up a certain truck and then leave through the gates of the company. And we actually needed some process to control this. So we came up at first with a small paper in which the boss at the warehouse would just authorize someone to leave at the gates with a truck. And these papers, they were making huge piles because we have like tens of movements at the gates every day, hundreds perhaps, depending on the day. And we needed a way to control this, to get all the process automated and also more secure, and the information would be kept so that we could later on check it. An example.
And maybe not real time, but closer to real time, right? Where it gets entered right away instead of at the end of the day or somewhere.
So an example, can you imagine if you have piles of papers and each of these papers relates to one movement at the gates? An example, a certain driver that has left through the gates to go to another city to deliver a certain order and then comes back, generates a single paper. Through the month, you get like thousands of different papers in a pile. And sometimes here in Brazil, you get a traffic bill because you have exceeded the speed limits. And it will only get to your company like a month or two later. And can you imagine how hard it was to actually go through all these papers trying to find out which driver was responsible for this traffic bill? It was very hard. So it was one of the examples of the tasks that would used to take a lot of time, and now they are done very fast because of the program that was developed in order to to manage this. So I'm going to show it now. It's separated into two modules. One of the modules is to be operated by the logistics team, and it's going to be responsible for authorizing, checking, managing all the movement at the gates. And the other module is going to be operated by the gatekeepers. So they will, through their module, be able to visualize if a certain truck is authorized to leave, what is the driver that is supposed to be leaving with that truck, and also they will be able to input some information and then confirm that the driver is leaving at the gates. And all this generates information, and through the time this information is kept safe and we can access it. So let's see it. First, the logistics module, which is this one. It's very simple. I have over time updated the design. It's an AutoHotkey GUI, even though at first it may not look like it. It's because there has been some work on the aesthetics of it. So as you can see here, I already see a lot of information. An example in this part of the screen. Can you see my mouse, bro?
Yes.
Yes. So the cursor. Okay. So if you can see here, this is the last one that has actually passed through the gates, and he made an entry, which is a type of movement. So he was delivering and then he came back. So when he passed through the gates, the gatekeeper will update information, and we will see that the truck whose license plates are EVO 9151 has returned to the company and has entered the building at 15:25 or 3:25 p.m. And this information is updated almost instantly. And someone that is in the logistics teams in another department inside the company, which would otherwise not be able to see this, the company with that truck. So if he is waiting for the truck to load the orders in order to deliver, he will immediately see it now. So, and this is displaying the last 5 movements, all right? And there's a lot more into this system. So this, an example, is an indication of which trucks are requiring maintenance right now. Everything here is designed to make the managers aware of what's going on with their fleet. So, an example, this specific truck with this license plate has to do an oil swap. So, anyways, you can also see using these buttons, an example, which types of trucks there is more than one type of truck based on what type of load does it handle, how many tons, what's the size of the truck. So if I click one of these buttons, I will be able to see which of these are at the company right now. So I have 3 trucks that are this size. If I remember correctly, the 3/4 are trucks that can handle around 4 tons of load. So I have 3 at the company at the moment. So the manager can, from his room, which is completely blind to actually where the trucks are located, he will be able to easily see which trucks are in the company and can be loaded for deliveries. And he can choose one and then choose a driver and set up a delivery. Cool. So I could do this with the other companies, with the other trucks as well, just typing these buttons. So how does it work? I have these specific GUI to which I authorize a certain truck to move, right? And I have this specific GUI to which I check and manage which trucks are authorized to leave. So, and it's now communicating with the database, collecting the data in order to display me all the information that I have to see regarding the authorizations that are currently pending in the company. So it's taking a while because I think it's update time for the database, but then again it's
jumping,
loading.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so it has collected the data, and now it shows me that at the moment there is only one authorization that this driver is authorized to leave using this vehicle, his destination, who has authorized him, what is the situation of this authorization at the moment, which is to leave. This word means to leave, which means that he has been authorized but has not left the gates yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Once he leaves the gates, this authorization will be consumed so that nobody else will be able to leave using this vehicle. Unless someone else authorizes making an authorization. But it will be consumed in part because it will move on to this screen, which is, it has already left, but it's to return.
Yeah.
So these trucks that you are seeing right now, they have already left the company and they have not returned yet. They are they're traveling. And I can see a lot of things about this specific authorizations. And then once they return, they will also consume in part that authorization and get to those finalized, let's say, it's these movement, which means that these are the authorizations that have left and then returned. So in an example, this one has left and returned, this one has left and returned. And sometimes I can also manage this by deleting this authorization. An example, he's not going to leave anymore. So just delete it and it will come here.
Okay.
All right, so you are able to manage all this authorization process. And how does the gatekeeper sees it? It does not see this specific screen. This is just the management team that is able to see this. So it uses a different module, which is this one. The gate module. It's designed to be the simplest possible because the gatekeepers, they're usually not very tech savvy. So what happens is this, they have two possibilities. Trucks that are to leave, trucks that are to return. So
awesome.
How does it work? Let's say that a certain truck arrives at the gates and is asking to leave the company. The gatekeeper will simply click here, select the license plate, and then check. So this specific truck is not authorized to leave. He will not allow this truck to leave.
Yeah.
As you can see from the previous module, this truck is currently authorized. So what happens is if I check this license plate right here, which is what the gatekeeper would do, it will display this screen, which means that it is authorized. But there are some very important things. It's this driver that is authorized. So if the truck is at the gates, but someone else is driving it, he will not be allowed to leave. That's part of the security routine which I have developed myself, and it's very interesting because it has allowed us to actually do a much better fleet control.
Absolutely.
So let's suppose that the truck is to leave. What's going to happen is the gatekeeper is going to input some information into this form, very basic. Who is in the truck besides the driver? An example, if he's taking John, and if Joseph is with him, Joseph. And then he's going to input whatever he wants to input regarding that specific movement. I don't know if he noticed something, the tire's flat, whatever. Anyways, the front tire's flat, whatever. It's just an open field so that he can do whatever he does. Then he's going to select his user, the gatekeeper. Okay. Then he's going to put his password, and then he's going to put the odometer of the truck so that we can control certain things using the fleet control. An example, if the truck is already requiring oil swap. Because how it works is this: the oil is designed to be swapped every 15,000 kilometers. So by inputting these odometers, updating it all the time,
it's awesome.
The system will be able to understand when the oil is to be changed. And once this happens, it will display that information that we have seen at the beginning of at the first screen. So it will confirm this movement. And once it confirms, the authorization will move from here to here, from this situation to leave, to this situation to return. And so these are two different models controlled by two different users, and it's only possible because they are designed to work using a database and a connect. So it's just an example of a more complex program. It's not just this, it has a lot more into it. Let's see. So let's suppose that I can see authorizations, but I can also see the movements, which is a different thing. If I get to the reports, movements, I can also search for them and display all the information that I need. So let's just, an example. There you have it. So let's just say that I got a traffic bill and it was issued to the truck, license plates, NXS 6363. Okay, so I'm going to filter the movements of the NXS 6363 on the specific date that the traffic bill is saying that he has exceeded the speed limit. So I will do a filter, and then you can see what types of movements happen with those cars. So this car has left the gates around 12:49 and then returned around 15. So if the traffic bill is saying that he has exceeded the speed limit around 14 o'clock, I will see that actually Giordano was the one responsible. So I'm going to call him and then say, hey, you have committed an infraction. You have exceeded the speed limit. So here's the bill for you. That's something like that. Anyways, this compared to actually sorting through a pile of thousands of papers, it's much faster. It's much more organized. The information is there for you to check. And it's interesting because I have been using this system for many years. We have been using in the company. So I can check for movements that have happened 5 years ago, no problem.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll bet you I could bet a lot of money on
Can you imagine if I had to sort through 5 years of papers?
But what I was going to ask you is just correct me if I'm wrong. After you implemented this system, you probably ended up getting far fewer speeding tickets and other issues, right? Because now there's accountability, and suddenly people are like, "Oh, I can't just do whatever I want."
The logistics is very organized today in my company, and awesome. We have other systems as well which aid a lot. An example, we have GPS trackers. So if someone exceeds the speed limits, we will be able to know. We don't have to wait until the traffic bill comes at our doors saying that we have that to pay. So, but yes, the information is very fast and very accurate and very complete now. Anyways, this is also part of the fleet control. It has a lot of more things. This is one of the things I like about this. I call this a okay, let's just say that I have a certain order, or I would like to check a certain route, because the logistics is very complex. I cannot fully explain it in a single interview, but can you imagine that I have a certain route? This is also part of the AutoHotkey script, and route RBCO03. And then I want to see it in order to study it. I can just click a button, select it, and what's going to happen is that it's going to select all the customers in that area, in that specific route, and it's going to display it to me in Google Earth. This is another example of two systems interacting with each other in order to allow this to happen. And from AutoHotkey, I collect the data about the specific locations, and then the script will update a KML file, and that's it. This is the route in the city. These are the customers. I can check them out if I want to. So I can do logistics studies, If I want to, I can input the tracker, the GPS tracker inside here so that I can see an example if the certain truck has left the route or not.
Yeah.
Anyways, this has helped us a lot over the years. Our logistics is highly organized because of this, and all because of AutoHotkey. It's a very important part of this process.
I don't know if you've given it thought, but I used to work somewhere where I did something kind of similar to this. But depending on how common your customers are, if they're not that common, what you could do also is go out and buy some external data about other companies that are similar to your customers, and then plot them, and then say, look, actually there's 3 other customers, potential customers, right around where we're going, right? And we should be signing them up, right? But yeah, anyway, this is wonderful. Love it.
Yeah, we have done it yet, actually, but this system is for the logistics team, so it will not display those who are not our customers yet.
Right.
We have the commercial team, which can access this information. It's very important because when it started the interview, we were talking about how big companies have to split the work into many departments and organize it, and a certain department, which is the logistics, has to have access to certain information, but not other information. And as you can see, it also shows quite clearly in these 2 specific models, to which the logistics management team can check everything about the movements, but the gatekeepers cannot. They can only see if that specific truck is authorized to live or not.
Yeah. They see what they need to see. Yeah.
Anyways, that's just part of everything. If I were to actually display this, even though it's just one script completely, it would take a lot of time. So these are just some examples so that we can understand how we can build complete systems using AutoHotkey, and it works, and it's fantastic.
This has been wonderful. Yeah, thank you. It's great examples. I think it's going to blow a lot of people's minds, the stuff that you've shown, just to realize, like, people think of AutoHotkey as I'm going to send a mouse click, right, or something, and you're showing real world what you've done with it. It's really impressive.
All right, so I have done another have used another routine, which actually displays data into the Google Earth as well. This is just another example. This is an HTML balloon, and it's been written by AutoHotkey into a KML file, and then ran using Google Earth, and how you can actually use this to do a lot of stuff if you really want to. There are no limits when you consider what the language can do. If you, aside of those that are actually common to programming in general, but if you have seen your computer do something, it's likely that AutoHotkey can do that as well. So this is one of the things I have been learning over the years, and it's very interesting. Not everything is exactly easy to do, but over time, if you really invest your time into learning the language, you will be able to do a lot of things.
No, it's a good point to remind people, you didn't do all this stuff in one weekend, right? And you also probably, let me guess, you didn't write it all at once, right? You created parts of it at a time and slowly kept adding to it over time and building on it.
Yeah, that's right. If you were to an example, this system is at version 2.41. So the very first version was much more simple. Over the years, I have updated it a lot. I have added a lot of things, and this is basically what you can do when you see something like an Excel or LibreOffice or whatever program that you see in your computer. It took a lot of time to do that. And it's also likely that you are using not the very first version, but a version that has been worked on for years. And this is what happens in the end. You have a very robust tool, a very robust system that allows you to manage that specific department, or however you want to use it to aid in your work. So this is an example of automation and programming, because part of the task that was done by hand in using papers and etc. is now done through the system, and it's very fast. I just have to click here, here, and then I can authorize a certain truck. I can authorize this specific driver to leave the gates from this start to another city, and input some other information into it. And then I will use my username and password and authorize, and then that's it. No need to actually print a paper, sign, put out information, then handle these papers. So it saves a lot of time, and this is automation. But at the same time, this is programming, because I'm using a programming tool, which is this script. That's basically it. Let me see if I can. Do you have any questions about this?
No, I think it's great. No.
No? Okay, so let's move on. Let's see if we have something else.
The other thing I'd mention, though, is in today's in 5 to 10 years ago, most programs didn't have a general API that you could connect to and programmatically interact with. But nowadays, programs are really having APIs that it's easy to interact with programmatically, instead of doing GUIs and sending keystrokes and stuff. So we're getting to some really fun times.
So that's basically it about the samples I have collected. I have done a lot more, as mentioned, but I think we have already took a lot of time.
Yeah, this is great. No, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Like I said, real world examples where you can see, just like it totally blew my mind. You're doing stuff in so many different areas that I wouldn't have thought of using AutoHotkey. So it's awesome.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Do you want to say anything else?
No, I think we're good. I think everyone's going to be really excited to see those. And it was some really interesting, fun, different things. I think I actually interviewed myself and demonstrated a lot of stuff I had automated at work, but so much of it no longer was relevant because I didn't have access to the tools, that I was automating. I couldn't demonstrate them. So it was really cool that you can show a deeper dive into stuff. But thank you so much. This was great.
I'd like to thank you as well, because it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to show some things of what I've been doing through the years. And it's been a very nice talk, and I always like to talk to you and to exchange all this information.
I'll bet you this. People at your work, they may not get necessarily excited about the code. They don't also probably have any idea if it was hard to do or easy to do, but they love that you did it, right? Versus people like me and people watching this, they'll have some idea of how much work, went into that. And I think that's what's going to be cool is, I'll show you where I post this, but I'll bet you a lot of people are gonna be like, Dan, that was some really awesome stuff that you're doing. It's great. So thank you for sharing that again.
Okay, thank you as well.
Awesome, man. All right, well, it's good talking to you. Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye.